Dear students, friends, the much awaited mains examination for the year 2023 for the GS paper 2 has been completed. So, here you can see the question paper for the GS paper 2. So, this is the first impression. I have just seen the paper for the last 15-20 minutes. So, what is my first impression? The GS paper 2 for the students who are prepared well should be on the expected lines. I would say around 70 to 75% of the questions can be answered, can be easily answered in fact if they are prepared well. And there are few areas which is very opinionated, few areas where the students have to analyze that, they cannot directly answer such questions, but not much. So, the overall impression, the first impression is that the students who have done well, the students who have covered their syllabus, they are going to do extremely well in this particular paper. And I would say that it is a very good paper in the sense that it is going to help the students who are already prepared well. If you are prepared well, you can easily answer the questions. If you see GS paper 2, there are 4 important areas if you can subdivide, although UPSC does not give that classification. If you see the paper can be divided into polity part. So, the first is the polity part, and then you have the governance part, and then you have the social justice part, and then the international relation part, and more or less I think UPSC has followed the same pattern as to what they have been following. Around in my first impression, around 4 to 5 questions have come from IR. So, let us just verify that. We will just go through the questions one by one. I think in the polity area they have asked around 8 to 10 questions. Governance they have asked 2 to 3 questions, and the same weightage has been given to the social justice part. This is the overall impression that I get on looking into the paper. And out of these questions, 75% of the questions, mostly in polity, they can be easily answered if you are prepared well. So, you can just have a look into those questions. You will just get into those areas. See the first question. The constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence is a prerequisite in a democracy. Very easy question. Now, judiciary, you know that the Supreme Court of India is the guardian of the Constitution, and the Constitution of India says that India is a democracy. The Supreme Court of India has to ensure the constitutionalism. The Supreme Court of India has to protect the rights of the people, including their political rights. So, as long as whenever any of the rights of the citizens are violated, they have to approach to the Supreme Court. So, that is a central theme around which the entire question is all about. So, this question is directly coming from the topic of what? Directly coming from the topic of judiciary, judicial independence. A lot of news has come in the paper with regard to judicial independence. So, probably they have not directly asked on judicial independence, but what is the importance of judicial independence in ensuring the democracy? So, there are number of provisions. So, the students have to take up the number of provisions and how those independence can help in ensuring the democracy. So, this is again I would say this has directly come from the subject polity, and that too from the topic of judiciary. Now, come to the second question. You can see that here who are entitled to receive free legal aid. Assess the role of National Legal Services Authority NALSA in rendering free legal aid in our country. I would say this is a mix of two things. One is the directive principles of state policy, because article 39 of the constitution provides for 39A to be very specific. It talks about the free legal aid to the poor. So, the state has the responsibility to ensure the free legal aid. And then it is not only about DPSP. To ensure this DPSP, the government has established, the government has passed what is called as the National Legal Services Authority Act. And under the National Legal Services Authority Act, there is an authority which is called as NALSA. So, this is again related to the topic of alternate dispute resolution mechanism, ADR. So, ADR is also very much directly mentioned in the syllabus. So, I would say this particular topic is from judiciary. This particular topic is a mix of, it is little interrelated to 2 areas in polity. One is DPSP and other is the alternate dispute resolution mechanism. So, here you can talk about the Lokpal and all those things. So, this area is also related to what? Polity. So, you can see that the questions, how they are being asked directly from the syllabus. First is from judiciary, here it is from the alternate dispute resolution mechanism. The states in India seem reluctant to empower the local bodies functionally as well as financially. So, the hint is given in the question itself. Now, this is related to the topic local bodies. When you talk of local bodies, a specific syllabus is given in GS paper 2, that issues in federalism and the issues with regard to devolution of powers to the local bodies. So again it is directly related to the subject polity. Direct questions, all that you will have to do is use some of the provisions in the constitution, some of the examples from the current affairs. You can extremely do well, both functionally as well as financially. That means the power has not been sufficiently given to the local bodies. What is the reason why the states are not giving the powers? The state legislature have to make the laws and they have to give the powers, and they have not been devolving the financial powers also. So what is the reason for all those things? So this is again directly related to polity. So you can see first 3 questions, direct questions, easy questions from polity. Students prepared well, they can easily attempt all these questions. Come to question number 4. Compare and contrast the British and the Indian approaches to parliamentary sovereignty. So this is again of late UPSC from the last 2-3 years, the trend is continuing. So this is from the topic comparison of constitution across the world. If you see comparison of constitution across the world, that also belongs to polity. This is one of the easiest question, I would say, in the last 2 to 3 years where they have asked from this particular topic. Sometimes last year there was a question relating the Indian presidential election with that of the France, which is, I would say, little unconventional, but this is a very conventional topic, easy to answer. So compare and contrast the British and the Indian approaches to parliamentary sovereignty. Now it should be well informed to all the students preparing for civil service, especially when you are appearing for the mains examination, that although India has borrowed most of the provisions from the British parliamentary system, the parliamentary system in India is not same as that of the British parliamentary system. In fact, the Indian constitution provides for constitutional supremacy. Our parliamentary system is based on the idea of constitutional supremacy. So there are limits upon the powers of the parliament, but the British parliamentary system is based on the idea of parliamentary sovereignty. And that is because we have a written constitution, they have an unwritten constitution. And that is why the powers of the British Parliament, to some extent, it is unlimited. That was some of the constitutional luminaries have said that the British Parliament can do everything except changing a man into a woman and a woman into a man. But apart from that, they have everything, all the powers to do, but which cannot be done in case of India. So there are differences which we will do a detailed analysis when we take up the discussion of the answers to these questions. So on a preliminary analysis, you can see that this is also coming from polity. Come to the next question, question number 5. Discuss the role of presiding officers of the state legislature in maintaining order and impartiality in conducting the legislative work and facilitating the best democratic practices. So this is on the expected lines. So mostly we expect question from the parliament, but this time it has been asked from the state legislature. But we know that the function of the speaker is almost same as that of the function of the speaker at the Lok Sabha is almost same as that of the function of the speaker in the legislative assembly. So it is clearly coming from the topic of parliament and state legislature. There is a syllabus which says parliament, their structure, their functioning, parliamentary privileges and issues arising out of all those things. So it is from the functions of the presiding officer. It is majorly because of the fact that a lot of incidents of anti-defection law and the speaker role in anti-defection law, the speaker role in certifying the money bills. There has been lot of indisciplinary activities happening in the houses of the parliament as well as in the state legislature. So what are the powers of the speaker in disciplining these members? So it's a very conventional topic, but it has also been in the current affairs. So you can understand as to how UPSC is picking these questions and picking these topics. So all these things should give an insight to the students as to how they have to be prepared in the future when the questions are asked. Again, a direct question from polity. So let me just summarize. You can see that. So this is from the topic of judiciary. This is from the topic of question number 2 is alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So here you can see that it is from the topic of local bodies, which is all conventional in nature. Comparison of constitution across the world, directly in your syllabus, and again a very conventional question. And discuss the role of presiding officer. So constitutionally certain functions are given to them, and what are the functions that they are supposed to do in order to ensure the in order to maintain discipline and impartiality in the houses with regard to law making and the other legislative business. Come to the next question, the crucial aspect of development process. So I would say all these questions are simple. It's not a very difficult thing for a student who has understood the basics and who know how to write an answer. Come to question number 6. The crucial aspects of developmental process has been inadequate has been the inadequate attention paid by the human resource development in India. Suggest the measures that can address this inadequacy. Again, a very simple topic, I would say, because they are not specifically appointing something, suggest some measures to address. So, probably you should be aware of some of the government schemes. If you are aware of that with regard to human resources, there is something which is called as National Skill Development Mission, and all those things can be used. So, this is again related to the idea of the topic which is related to social justice. There is a topic in the syllabus which talks about the initiatives that has been taken by the government with regard to health, education and human resource. So, I would say this is from the topic of what is social justice. So, you can see how UPSC has been asking the questions. So, crucial aspect of developmental process has been inadequate attention paid to human resource. How lack of attention which has been given to the human resource development, skill development has impacted the developmental process. I would say this is not a very direct question, but yes, if you have prepared the syllabus well, you can still answer this question. Come to the next question. Discuss the role of Competition Commission of India in containing the abuse of dominant position by multinational corporations in India. So, this is a question that is on the expected lines. There is a topic in your syllabus which talks about constitutional bodies, statutory bodies, regulatory bodies and quasi-judicial bodies. Now, the Competition Commission of India is covered under the statutory bodies also. The Competition Commission of India Act is there. It is also a regulatory body. It regulates the financial markets in our country. And this year, there was a lot of issues that was there reported in the news, and a lot of matters has been taken by the Competition Commission of India. So, any student who is aware of this, definitely they know this is an area where they will ask the question. So, very easy question again. So, this is again I would say from the area polity. So, you can see as to how things are distributed in the syllabus. Come to the next question, e-governance as a critical tool of governance. See, this is also a very conventional question this year. E-governance as a critical tool of governance has assured in effectiveness, transparency and accountability in governance. So, what inadequacies hamper the achievement, advancement of, enhancement of these features? So, basically they are asking about what are the various challenges in e-governance in our country. Very simple question. They have not asked it directly, but that is the question. So, this is directly coming from the topic of governance. So, overall you see out of the 8 questions, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions from polity, 6 questions from polity, 1 from social justice and 1 from governance. So, now just let us proceed, let us try to understand the remaining questions also. So, come to the next page, you can come to the next page. So, let us just proceed further. So, we will see the other questions. So, you can see that UPSC has been asking very simple questions, it is not very difficult, but yes, once you are prepared on the basic topics, it becomes easier for you. So, just give me a moment, let me just take up the other questions, and that will also make you very clear as to how the other questions has been asked. So, let me just forward those questions, just give me a moment. Just give me a moment, just let me open up the mail. So, here you can see the question number 9, let me just download this. So, here you can see the next question, let us just go to question number 9, we will just put it here. Okay, so you can see the next question, that is the question number 9, we will just move on to the question number 9. So, out of the 8 questions we can see 6 questions from, you can see 6 questions have come from polity, you can see 1 from social justice and 1 from governance. So, come to question number 9. So, virus of conflict is affecting the functioning of the SEO. So, when you say virus of conflict affecting the functioning of SCO. So SCO is an organization which Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which India is also a member of that. So you can understand that why there is a conflict affecting the functioning of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In the light of the above statement, point out the role of India in mitigating the problems. So again, it is directly from the syllabus. So the syllabus says very clearly that when you look into the international relations part, that is the fourth part, the international relations part. If you see the international relation part, it talks about India and its neighbors. It also talks about the bilateral relationship, regional groupings and global groupings, and the decisions that is taken in these groupings, how it affects India, or what is the role of India in these groupings. So I would say it is directly a question related to which is there in the syllabus. And Shanghai Cooperation Organization is something India is looking forward to effectively perform. So this is again on the expected lines. Indian diaspora has been clearly given in the syllabus. Indian diaspora has scaled new heights in the West. Describe the economic and the political benefits for India. So already the topic Indian diaspora has been introduced in the syllabus because of the fact that the Indian diaspora community has been effectively functioning and helping India in number of areas. So now how the Indian diaspora has been doing extremely well in the West. So you know that how an Indian diaspora personality has become the vice president in United States of America, and then how they are extremely doing well in Canada. So especially they have been doing well in the West. So what are the economic and the political benefits of that? So I would say this is again from the international relation part, but on the expected lines, not a very difficult thing to answer. So come to the next question, question number 11. The Constitution of India is a living instrument with capabilities of enormous dynamism. It is a constitution made for a progressive society, illustrate with special references to expanding horizons in the right to life and liberty. Again on an expected line, but I won't say this is to be a very conventional question, but so this is something which is on the expected lines. In fact, we have taught all those things in our MRP program. So the Constitution of India is a living instrument with capabilities of enormous dynamism. It is a constitution made for a progressive society. That means this is based on the idea of, which was there in the newspaper, this was based on the idea of what? This is based on the idea of transformative constitutionalism or a transformative constitution. So this is exactly what we have taught in the MRP programs. So transformative constitution is how the constitution has the potential to transform the society. How the constitution can be interpreted very liberally and how it can meet the challenging needs as per the needs of the society according to the changes and the challenges in the society. So this is again I would say basically from the polity part, but this is related to the philosophical aspects, the first part of the syllabus, the salient features and the basic structure and all those things. So from those areas, and how, and you can explain that with few judgments that from the recent past. Okay, so this is again from the topic polity, but not a very easy question. I would say that it is of moderate difficult or a difficult question. Now come to the next question. Explain the constitutional perspective of gender justice with the help of relevant constitutional provisions and case laws. Again a very important question. Explain the constitutional perspective of the gender justice with the help of, so what the constitution talks about, or what is the idea of the various provisions in the constitution to ensure gender justice in our country. The time the Constituent Assembly has been drafting the Indian Constitution, it is very clearly thought that it was a very prejudiced society, it was a patriarchal society. So what are the things that has been incorporated in the Constitution to ensure gender justice? On top of the provisions in the Constitution, what are the various laws or what are the various case studies? You can put it, say for example, you can talk about the Sabrimala temple case, and now you can talk about the judgments in the judiciary with regard to uniform civil code. These are all with the idea of bringing what? These are all idea of bringing a gender justice. So here it is not only about the fundamental rights, you can associate that with the directive principles of state policy also. Plus in addition to that, you can bring in certain case laws also. So these are all the areas how you can answer this particular question. But again, this is directly related to the topic, the philosophical part, I would say, again related to the topic of polity. So see the weightage of polity. Almost out of 8 questions, in the first 8 questions, 6 questions has been from polity. So now you can say apart from the first 2 questions, the next 2 questions are also from polity. Now come to the next question. Account for the legal and the political factors responsible for the reduced frequency of using Article 356 of the Union Government since mid 1990s. Mid 1990s, you will have to understand that is when the SR Bommai judgment was given. The SR Bommai case was given in 1994. And in the SR Bommai case, they have given a lot of guidelines as to what is the appropriate use of Article 356. And in fact, the use of Article 356 has been subject to judicial review. So, here the student should be aware of the SR Bommai judgment. So, that is a legal mechanism. But apart from that, what are the other political factors? If you talk of political factors also, now after 1990s, you see that there is a lot of coalition government, and the regional parties have become more stable in nature. So, these are all some of the other factors that the student should be aware of. So, I won't say, although the base of this particular question is from polity, but apart from polity, students should also be aware of a little bit of political analysis to answer this particular question. But again, I would say that this area is also not much difficult to answer. So, this will also go to the polity section. Now, come to the next question, that discuss the contribution of civil society groups and women's effective and meaningful participation in representation in the state legislatures in India. Discuss the contribution of civil society groups for women's effective and meaningful participation and representation in the state legislatures in India. So, this question might have been asked, not a direct question, but this question might have been asked because of a lot of demand that is happening in our country with regard to women's reservation in not just in the local bodies, but also in the state legislature and in Lok Sabha. And women have been participating in a number of civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and that has played as a ground where they can practice in the future to participate in the political process. So, now you can take a number of activists turned politicians in our country, especially women's. I think that is the area which this particular question, it requires a couple of examples to substantiate your answer, and if you can give that example, probably this could be the way that you can answer this question. But this would be of a moderate difficulty. It is not a very easy question, it is not a very direct question. So, I will add this to the governance part, which is related to the topic of civil society, NGO and all those things. Civil society plus non-governmental organizations. So, this question is related to both governance as well as the polity section. So, yes, we will put it on the governance topic. Come to the next question, explain the significance of 101st Constitutional Amendment Act. To what extent does it reflect the accommodative spirit of federalism? So, again this question is related to the idea of cooperative federalism. So, this is basically related to the concept of GST. 101st Constitutional Amendment Act brought in what is called as GST, and GST was seen as a classic example of cooperative federalism. So, this is one area where we regularly teach to the students, and how the GST Council has got representation from both the states as well as the union. So, this is again, I would say, this is a topic which is related to polity. So, now if you tally out of 15 questions, you can understand that out of 15 questions, you can see that again 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. So, there are 4 questions from polity. That means 6 plus 4, I would say, out of 15 questions, 10 questions from polity, and then 1 on social justice from the previous 8 questions. 1 from governance has been added. So, 1 plus 1, here it is 2. And then you can see, 1 plus 1 is here. So, here so far 1 question, and then you can see in the IR part, IR. So, we have seen how many questions? I think 2 questions from the IR. So, overall 2 questions. So, you can see 10 plus 11, 13, 15. So, out of 15 questions, again you can see the contribution of polity. So, polity has 10 questions. Social justice 1 question so far, and then governance 2 question, and IR 2 questions. So, let us just move to the next page and let us try to understand as to what is there in the next page. So, the next set of questions. So, let me just tally it till this point of time. Out of 15 questions that you have seen, so what is the tally so far? You can see 10 questions from polity, 1 question from social justice, 2 question from governance, and 2 questions from IR. So, this is what is the tally. We will just keep adding to this. Explain the structure of the parliamentary committee. So, this is again a very conventional question. So, every year mostly they ask a question from the parliamentary committees. So, explain the structure of parliamentary committees. You can just give a structure of various parliamentary committees, because we have different types of parliamentary committees in that. And you can see that how far the financial committees have helped the institutionalization of the Indian Parliament. So, after giving a brief about the different types of parliamentary committees, so here the question is specifically about the financial committees. So, there are 3 financial committees, you will probably have to explain them and how they helped in institutionalizing the parliament, how they make the parliament, how they help the parliament in making the government more accountable. So, this is again related to the topic of polity, I would say. Development and welfare schemes for the vulnerable sections by its nature or discriminatory in approach. Of course, it is, because whenever I say discriminatory, so do not take it in negative light. How the welfare schemes, say for example, today there are welfare schemes for the underprivileged, welfare schemes for the poor people, welfare schemes for the widows, welfare schemes for the other sections of the society who are especially vulnerable. But these welfare schemes are discriminatory in approach, but this is positive discrimination. This is positive discrimination. So, whenever you talk of positive discrimination, this is related to the idea of social justice. So, do you agree? Of course, you have to agree, because the constitution not only provides for equality before law, it also provides for equal protection of laws. Alright, so this is again, you can quote few examples from article 14, the provisions of article 14, but majorly it is related to the idea of what is called as social justice. So, you can see that how again the questions are asked. Now, skill development programs have succeeded. Next question. Skill development programs have succeeded in increasing the human resources supply to various sectors. In the context of the statement, analyzes the linkages between education, skill and employment. So, again it is related to the human resource. I think there is a repetition in this particular area. So, this is again related to the topic of social justice to improve upon the sections of the society. So, in social justice, this is basically related to the human resource development. Alright. So, come to the next question. In the expansion and strengthening of NATO and a stronger US-Europe strategic partnership works well for India. So, again there is a topic in the syllabus, how the global groupings, it is about bilateral, regional and global groupings, and the decision which is taken by the global groupings, what kind of influence does it have on India. And because of the Russia-Ukraine war, and you know that the NATO has been very proactive, the NATO has been trying to expand, and what kind of implications it can have on India. So, that is exactly I think this question is all about. Again directly asked from the question, not a very difficult question, I would say, I would put that under an easy question. But however, what is your opinion about this? So, here it is not only about what you know about them, but the UPSC is also trying to assess your own opinion about all these things. Alright. So, give reasons and examples. So, this makes your answer little difficult, because you cannot just write an emotional answer, you should give a rational answer, you should substantiate as to why you give that particular answer. So, this is related to IR part. And then come to the last question. C is an important component of the cosmos. Of course, yes, the major portion of the cosmos is occupied by C, at least in the earth. Discuss in the light of the above statement the role of International Maritime Organization in protecting the environment and enhancing the maritime safety and security. So, this is again I would say directly picked from the syllabus, because the syllabus talks about important international organizations, agencies, forums, and their decisions and their responsibility, how it can impact India. So, you should also be aware of certain important international organizations. I think this is again related to the topic of IR. So, overall you can see that out of these 5 questions, so again there are 2 more questions which is added to IR. So, IR overall 2 plus 2, 4, and there is no question from governance, but yes, there are 2 questions from social justice. So, here you can see social justice plus 1 question from polity. So, here you can understand the tally of the questions that has come in UPSC examination for the year 2023. So, you can see 11 questions from polity. So, this is the tally. So, overall how many questions from polity? You can see 11 questions from polity. Overall how many questions from social justice? You can see 3 questions from social justice. How many questions from governance? You can see 2 questions, and from IR you can see 4 questions. That means every question according to the marks, you can understand that. So, overall the weightage has been 50% is still polity, and then around you can say 25% is for IR, because around 50 marks from IR, and then you can say 50%, sorry, another 25% is from social justice and governance. Still the lion's share is taken by polity. And good thing about this year is that most of the polity questions, I would say 80% of the polity questions, after having a close look into the question, 80% of the polity questions, except for 1 or 2 questions, which in my opinion is also not very difficult to answer, and that is how UPSC will ask the question. But 80% of the polity questions has been directly asked from the fixed conventional topics which is given in the syllabus. And there is 1 or 2 questions which is there in the syllabus, but from the current affairs, say for example the Competition Commission of India. Because when you talk of regulatory bodies, there are hundreds of regulatory bodies, you cannot prepare all those things. So the students have to watch out. So this is a clue that if something is coming in the newspaper, how that they can transform as a question in the UPSC mains examination. 50% of the questions from polity, I would say 80% of that can be easily answered, 8 questions can be easily answered. Social justice, 3 questions, I would say out of this 50%. So I would say 2 questions can be answered easily. And then out of governance, 2 questions, I would say both the questions can be answered. Even if you put 50%, 1 question can be answered easily. And in IR, I would say except for the International Maritime Organization, which may not be on the expected lines, but never know that there may be few articles which is related to this. It may be very relevant in the current affairs. Other questions are not much difficult. They have been many times in the news. So even let us put that 50% of the questions, 2 questions can be answered easily. So you can see 8 plus 10, 10 plus 1, 11, 13 questions. I would say 13 to 15 questions can be easily answered. So overall, I would say the students who are prepared effectively, the students who are prepared on various topics, for them this year the paper is not a very difficult paper. So they could have done extremely well, provided that you have covered your syllabus. So what is the key takeaway that you should have? So UPSC is going to help those students who prepare the syllabus. So you should not, there is no scope to leave out any part of the syllabus. It is very important that you cover everything in the syllabus. And once you cover the syllabus, you can understand 15 questions can be answered easily. And if you can easily answer 15 questions, and even if you touch upon the other questions, so even if you are not having exact idea, in UPSC you should develop that aptitude to write an answer. When I say to write an answer, you have to write an answer making an educated guess, and you should write an answer which is rational in nature. Rather than writing something which is not relevant, you should write a rational answer. And most importantly, students should also develop this ability of calming down their nerve for the first few minutes. Get into the examination call, calm down your nerve, and if you can have control over the first few minutes, and believe me, then you will have the control over the rest of the examination process. Alright. So overall, if you ask me to rate how this question paper is, I would say this question paper is more on the easier side for the students who have done extremely well, who have prepared well on the syllabus. And with few enrichments, they can definitely score well. So scoring around 110 marks, in my opinion, is not a very difficult task in GS paper 2, provided you have covered the syllabus. So I would say 110, and anything above 110 is a very good score, and a good score would be somewhere between 100 to 110 marks. So we will come out again. So this is my first impression on the GS paper 2. So we will again come out with a detailed analysis of the GS paper 2 and how to approach and how to write an answers to all these questions. And we will again come out with a detailed analysis by 9:15 today. So please watch out for the detailed analysis of GS paper 2. Thank you very much.